G7 leaders have signed a joint statement saying Iran is the principal source of instability in the Middle East and that it can never have a nuclear weapon. Leaders of the group of 7 countries have signed a joint statement calling for a resolution of the Iranian crisis, saying this will lead to a ceasefire in Gaza. They called Iran the principal source of regional instability and terror, and that Israel had the right to defend itself. The statement also insisted that Tehran can never have a nuclear weapon. As Donald Trump made an early exit from the summit and made his way back to Washington, French President Emmanuel Macron told reporters that the US president had made a ceasefire offer to Iran and Israel. Trump, however, immediately responded via an online post, saying the French president always gets it wrong and that his departure from the summit involves something much bigger than a ceasefire.
Thousands of Iranian residents are leaving Tehran following a partial evacuation order from the Israeli military ahead of a new wave of missile strikes. The order was issued to 330,000 people living in the centre of Iran's capital early on Monday, although many had already begun to flee following attacks over the weekend. Many shops in the city have closed, along with the ancient Grand Bazaar, and long traffic jams were reported on roads out of the city on Sunday night. People were left queuing for fuel for up to 5 hours, with rations in place of 25 litres per car. Later on Monday, US President Donald Trump also posted a message on social media site Truth Social calling for the immediate evacuation of Tehran. Indian students in Tehran have been evacuated, while around 65 Latvian nationals have registered to leave Israel, and a Slovak government flight repatriating dozens from the Middle East landed in Bratislava on Monday. Meanwhile, some 50,000 to 100,000 Israelis are believed to be stranded overseas after authorities closed Israel's airspace early on Friday. Civilians have been redirected to temporary hubs in Greece and Cyprus, with some now trying to reach Israel via land routes through Jordan or Egypt.
Officials in Gaza say at least 51 Palestinians were killed and more than 200 wounded while waiting for UN and commercial trucks to enter the territory with desperately needed food. According to Gaza's health ministry and a local hospital, Israeli forces carried out an airstrike on a nearby home before opening fire towards the crowd in the southern city of Han Yunis. The Israeli military said soldiers had spotted a gathering near an aid truck that was stuck near where Israeli forces were operating. The shooting did not appear to be related to a new Israeli and US-supported aid delivery network that rolled out last month and has been marred by controversy and violence. Israel says the new system, operated by a private contractor, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, is designed to prevent Hamas from siphoning off aid to fund its militant activities. Experts have warned of famine in the territory that is home to some 2 million Palestinians.
Foreign ministers.
The EU's top diplomat has warned that the United States getting involved in the Israel-Iran conflict could make things worse, and has urged both sides to de-escalate. Kaya Kallas's comments come as US President Donald Trump has vowed, quote, a real end to the conflict.
When it comes to United States getting involved, then it will definitely drag the region into a broader conflict, and this is in nobody's interest. And from my call with Secretary of State Rubio, he emphasized that it's also not in their interest to be drawn into this conflict.
She also said EU members are working closely to coordinate evacuations of citizens from the region.
Today, the clear outcome was the coordination that we do for our own citizens to evacuate them from there. We have member states that have, planes evacuating. We have member states who don't have planes, and we coordinate the efforts so that our citizens are safe. That is one thing.
Kallas also said the EU would not let their focus on Gaza slip and urged immediate and full access to humanitarian aid, which Israel has so far heavily restricted.
Poland is strengthening its borders with a defense system reminiscent of a new Iron Curtain as it attempts to ward off threats amid heightened tensions from Russia's war in Ukraine. Authorities in Warsaw say they have added minefields to the East Shield project, the name given to the protective barrier whose construction began in November last year and now occurs year-round, 7 days a week.
Is this a new Iron Curtain which is being hung, across the continent? It looks like that, to be quite honest with you. The Eastern Bloc, not only, of Belarus and Russia, but also further to the east, it looks like there is a new division in Eurasia forming before our eyes.
The barrier spans over 20 kilometers along the Polish border, adjacent to the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad, extending to the Baltic Sea. Poland, one of the NATO countries that has significantly enhanced its military capabilities, shares borders with Russia to the north and Belarus to the east. According to the Polish government, this segment and the one along the Belarusian border will be completed within 3 years, with funding of over €1 billion, including contributions from the EU.
Portuguese police have arrested 6 individuals linked to a far-right group, seizing firearms and explosive materials. Authorities believe the suspects are members of the so-called Movimento Armela Lusitano, which police say sought to establish itself as a political movement backed by an armed militia. The suspects are under investigation for crimes considered terrorist in nature, including possession of prohibited weapons, discrimination and incitement to hatred and violence.
Sabemos que estavam de facto a armar-se, a recrutar pessoas e a ter capacidade de treino e tática para fazer uma ação que não sabemos qual, mas que provavelmente estaria no seu horizonte.
Police say the group, which was formed in 2018, promotes extreme far-right nationalist views and targets migrants and refugees with online propaganda. Authorities also confirmed one of the 6 detainees was a member of a police force. A Russian missile and drone attack on Kyiv overnight into Tuesday has killed 15 people, including a US citizen, and wounded 131 more. 30 apartments in a residential block were destroyed, and fires also broke out in other districts due to falling drone debris. It was one of the deadliest attacks on Kyiv in recent months and comes after 2 rounds of direct peace talks have failed to make progress on ending the war. The assault came as world leaders gathered for the G7 summit in Canada, which Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is due to attend. However, a planned meeting with President Donald Trump has been cancelled after Trump made an unexpected early return to Washington on Monday night. It's the latest in a recent escalation of mass air attacks by Russia, which follow Ukrainian strikes on military air bases deep inside Russian territory. Indonesia's Mount Lewatobi Laki-Laki volcano has erupted, shooting around 10,000 metres of thick grey ash into the air, according to Indonesia's geology agency. Authorities have upgraded the eruption alert to its highest level and extended the danger zone to 8 kilometres from the crater. There were no casualties reported. However, residents have been warned to remain vigilant for heavy rainfall that could trigger lava flows in rivers originating from the volcano.
Volvo Cars is to develop different technologies for products offered to Chinese and Western customers, the company's CEO told Euronews on Monday. This, as world trade becomes more fragmented and as Washington seeks to distance itself from Chinese tech due to concerns linked to potential US data leaks.
in our future we see that we will have to divide that. We will have certain software stacks for Europe and for US and another software stack for China. And I think that's something that all of the car makers need to adapt to. But so we don't see any risk in any way that we will be using Chinese technology in US. That will not happen.
Although the firm has signaled a desire to focus more on US and Chinese customers, Volvo Cars still relies heavily on the European market. When it comes to manufacturing these vehicles, some are made in Europe, while others are made in China and shipped over. This means that, on certain vehicles, Volvo is exposed to EU duties introduced last year in response to alleged unfair subsidies from Beijing.
I think basically we should have an attitude of free trade and free competition. That's good for us all. Of course, now realistically that will not happen. I think we're going into a more regional world and there will be some restrictions in technology.
In this year's first quarter earnings report, Volvo Cars reported a drop in profits. New US tariffs of 25% on foreign cars and car parts are notably causing a headache for the firm, dampening customer appetite as well as raising import costs.